people see profit first and they think it's too simple to be true. Like, how could something so easy by just carving up money at a bank account and moving to different accounts, sounds like a shell game. How could that actually be of service to me? I think it's human nature to throw complexity at our struggles when actually simplicity is the solution, but we overlook simplicity. So that's one common problem. Another challenge I see regularly, we have over 300,000 companies now successfully implement profit first. So it's established. And so we've seen so many different flavors of success, but so many different flavors of failure with the system.
Hey, it's Rocky. Welcome to Richer Soul. Today's guest is Mike Michalowicz, who created Profit First. And we're going to learn how impactful it can be in your business and life. Imagine it's 12 months from now, and you've achieved your major life goals. How does it feel to be in the best shape of your life, to wake up energized, excited about the day, to have great relationships and friends who support you and propel you forward? How does it feel to have an excess of money, to be able to make the choices you want, to be fearless and open to trying new adventures? Imagine being connected to the universe and it providing everything you desire. It's possible over time, and your past does not dictate your future. The only thing holding you back from this vision is you. It's time to take control of our thoughts and use them to our advantage. Welcome to Richer Soul, where we achieve our dreams and bring balance to health, wealth, relationships, time, and spirituality. If you have not had a chance to listen to episodes 1 through 9, I encourage you to go back and listen to the framework behind Richer Soul and how to create the life of your dreams. You can also find all the show notes for this episode at richersoul.com. While you're there, you can sign up for a monthly email where I share the best articles I read this month, let you know about upcoming episodes, and share a little wisdom. You can also listen to coaching calls under the Coaching Calls tab. I also share the most interesting articles I read every week on Facebook at facebook.com/Richer Soul. And there's also a Facebook group where you can ask questions and interact with other listeners. Today's quote is from our guest, Mike Michalowicz. All revenue is not the same. If you remove your worst unprofitable clients and the now unnecessary cost associated with them, you will see a jump in profitability and a reduction in stress, often within a few weeks. Equally important, you will have more time to pursue and clone your best clients. That's one of the conversations I have with a lot of entrepreneurs and business people, is getting rid of bad clients. Bad clients drive everyone up the wall. They drive you up the wall, they drive your staff and employees up the wall, and they make everything miserable. And they chew up a lot of dollars. When you have the proper revenue and you have profit, you have the ability to say no. And that is the ultimate in freedom when you fire clients. It's very rewarding. I've got a second quote that I want to talk about today, and this one comes from the book Expert Secrets. And it's about a conversation with Tim Ferriss, who wrote the 4-Hour Work Week. Hey, Tim, you seem to get so much done. What is it that you do all day? And Tim answered, if you watch my daily routine, you'd be bored out of your mind. Most people wake up every morning with a task list of 1,000 things to do. They go through the day trying to knock down all those things. I wake up every morning and I meditate. I drink tea or coffee, I go for a walk, and maybe I read a book. He said he might spend 3 or 4 weeks doing that and nothing else. My whole goal is to slow down and look around. Instead of looking for all the tasks that I could do, I try to identify the one big domino. The one thing that, if I could knock that down, all the other dominoes would either fall down or become irrelevant. How does that sit with you? The idea that doing nothing, that slowing down, that removing everything and spending time to figure out what's the big thing that you need to get done. I'm kind of working on that in the way that I structure my life. This first quarter of 2020 is all about my marketing. And so I'm taking everything off the table. I'm working on that one big domino, and it's going to take me a couple of months. What's your one domino? For Profit First, setting up the accounts and allocations is a major part of the success because most people just don't get started. And getting started is always the hardest part. I also spend a good deal of my time getting ready in the morning. It makes for a calmer, more productive day. So our last action step from David was to try something new. Did you? One of the new things that I'm doing right now is video emails. I send a short thank you note or other message. It's something different and outside the ordinary. Today's guest is Mike Michalowicz. He is an entrepreneur behind the 3 multi-million-dollar companies, and he's the author of Profit First, Clockwork, The Pumpkin Plan, and his newest book, Fix This Next. Mike is a former small business columnist for the Wall Street Journal and regularly travels the globe as an entrepreneurial advocate. Let's meet Mike. Welcome to Rich Your Soul, Mike Michalowicz. It's great to have you join us today.
Rocky, it is a joy to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, and I'm excited because literally my life is all implementing the systems that I have learned from you. So it's a joy to talk to you and kind of dig deeper and let the audience get a chance to meet you as well.
Oh, that's so cool. Well, thank you, Rocky, for having me as part of your journey, you know, and even in a small way. I mean, maybe I wrote some recipes, but you're the guy cooking it up. I just appreciate you using some of the recipes I wrote.
Well, and it makes my life so much easier. And that was a decision point for me. Do I create my own recipes or do I just use yours, which would be so much easier rather than me trying to figure it all out and say, you know, we're very much in alignment in principles.
Yeah.
And so I could just go do it. But then I was like, but he's got all the recipes to make it easy and get rid of all the friction in this. And then I can start running. So it worked out well.
You know, it's funny. I was talking a long time ago with Simon Sinek, fabled author. You know, he wrote Start With Why. He shared. He goes, Mike. You know, you can have either a product or a platform, but trying to achieve both is really difficult. And so he talked about, you know, Amazon is a platform for distribution, but they sell predominantly other people's products. They've become such a juggernaut now. They make their own products, but predominantly other people's products. And people who are making those products, they could make their own Amazon platform, but that's really a daunting task. So it's the combination of the product itself, but then the delivery of that product is often two entities. And so it sounds like kind of that's how you and I have partnered up here. I've created a product that you could create, but you already have mastered the delivery component, which I haven't. So it becomes kind of a very symbiotic relationship.
That it is. So we're going to take a step back because we always like to start at the beginning. What was it like when you were growing up, and how much did your family and school teach you about money?
So growing up for me, I had a very beaver cleaver upbringing. My father worked 9 to 5 for the entirety of his life at one company that he loved and appreciated and would be home for dinner every night. My mother was a stay-at-home mom until myself and my sister had graduated from grade school and we're off to high school. Did she start working because she just had a joy for work. And, you know, finances were taught to us very early on by my mother. She grew up, both my parents actually grew up as the World War II generation. My father was in the tail end of World War II, and my mother was a young girl growing up in World War II. And they experienced frugality. And my mother brought to our family the envelope method, something I ultimately taught in a new version for business in Profit First. But my mother raised us on that. And so when the paycheck would come in, they'd cash in their check. They would divide money up into, you know, one to pay for the mortgage, another one for food, one to give back to the church and community. And when it was time to go, you know, food shopping, she grabs the food envelope and she would make do with what was in the food envelope. So very early on, I had this understanding of divide your money up before you utilize it. interestingly, in school, they never talked about finance. Not in grade school, not that I can recall, not in high school, and definitely not in college. And yet, it's such a pivotal component of life is understanding the finances. I'm just kind of a little bit aghast that back then, and maybe still even today, that it isn't taught in the school system. I'm just blessed that my parents taught me it.
And you are correct. I have an economics degree and an MBA, and we weren't taught, even in the advanced levels, when you go for an MBA, you think they teach you about money. No, it's funny. That's the way it is.
Yeah.
So your mother was using the envelope system a long time ago. And I know a lot of people think Dave Ramsey invented the envelope system. He didn't. Do you know where that system came from?
I think it emanates out of Europe, but I do think it goes back. It may go back to BC, honestly. So there's a book called The Richest Man in Babylon, which reflects back on that time. It is not a historic piece, but talks about the envelope system. I know I receive gifts now around this. In Denmark, there was this, I was sent this, I don't know how to explain it. It's a rectangular long, but small crunch down lunchbox with slots, but many slots. And above each slot had different words. One was, automobile, one was home, one was food. And in Denmark, and this thing must have been from the early 1900s, money was being divided up. The coins people would earn, they would divide up. So it has been around likely for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And it's documented everywhere. I think Dave Ramsey is a modern protagonist for the concept, but it's definitely not mine. It's not his. It's an idea that just continues to mature and have different flavors. I simply took the concept and applied it to business.
Absolutely. And we'll dig into that momentarily. Just out of curiosity, are you doing anything different to teach your kids about money?
Yes. And I hope I've done enough. We did raise them on a system, like we never had allowance or anything at our house. And I actually even shared in the book, they had to earn their money. And very quickly, the entrepreneurial bug kicks in, even when you're, 5 years old, or 6 years old. They were understanding that you can claim a task and then outsource the work to your siblings. So it's pretty interesting. And it's perpetuated on. Our children, they're now in college and one's an adult. They've always been responsible for their own stuff, their own car. They had to buy on their own and their own anything that wasn't necessary for the basics of living. So we were providing food, shelter, and clothing. Everything else beyond that was their own responsibility. Now it's tougher to teach my children. So I told them about profit first. None of them read the book, I don't believe. I've told them about it, and I told them and sat down with their significant others saying, here's ways to manage your personal finances with it. I'm not involved enough or haven't inserted myself enough to know if they're actually executing on it well. I think just one final thought around this is some of the learning comes through the burning, though. Like they will get burned financially. I hope in a small way where it doesn't negatively affect their lives for long, but I want them to get burned to feel that visceral pain of not having financial acuity. If you don't manage the finances right, there are consequences. And I want them to experience that too.
That's interesting you say that, because so you had this great upbringing. You were taught about money from your family. Did you have one of those kind of burning experiences?
Oh, totally. Yeah, totally. It's funny, as you said, I had to buy my own car, my own spending money. So my parents raised me in the very much the same method I've raised my children. And my burning experience was when I was in my early 30s. I had built and sold two companies. They were both multi-million-dollar businesses. I didn't realize until reflection how fortunate my timing was. Luck was definitely a player in this, but I thought it was exclusively my great drive and intelligence that drove all my success. So I started a third business that was a calamity as an angel investor, but I had no right to be in that space. And I evaporated all my wealth. I lost everything. And I lost my house over that. I lost everything. The only thing I didn't lose was my family. And that became an awakening period for me. It was such a painful experience to lose everything that I came to realize I really didn't have an understanding for how finances worked, or actually, in this case, any other elements of entrepreneurship. I thought I knew everything, it was a cause and effect. I said, well, listen, I started a business. I worked my butt off and look at all this money I made. Clearly, starting a business and working your butt off makes money. No, working hard alone isn't effective. We have to do the right things in the right sequence. Sometimes I was doing the right things at the wrong time and there was no benefit there. Other times I was doing the wrong things, but the right fortune came upon me and I thought I was a genius. So when I lost all that money, that was my awakening. And it really threw me for a loop. I actually went through depression for 2 years and started to drink and stuff. It's just like, it was not my identity at all. And not who I was, not who I am today. But I went through that period and I realized I need to get back to the basics of understanding entrepreneurship. In fact, that's what triggered me to become an author. I wanted to write down, to study and understand what made a successful entrepreneur and to deconstruct it and reconstruct it in a very simplified form. And from that, every book I've written has been based upon that desire to really understand entrepreneurship for myself and in the process, hopefully be of service to my readers.
And I see that a lot with entrepreneurs. It seems like everyone is on this treadmill of generate revenue, but nobody's actually looking at systems in their business. They get tied up in the business that they in the business are. I mean, they're just like on this treadmill. They can't get out. They're stuck. Yeah. So they're working hard. On top of that, they're not looking at the bottom line. It's always top line. Grow.
I know.
It'll all work out. And we see that, and I keep calling out Uber and WeWork and all these companies because one day, someone's going to come a-calling and you've got to be profitable. And yet, for whatever reason, society's got these weird things where they don't look at what is truly important.
Well, and I think I know why. I think I know why we do that. And that is the exact behavior. There's this growth mentality. And I think there's a few drivers behind that. But the first thing I teach people, and I want them to be aware of, is that sales directly correlates to stress. And what I mean by this is every time you have a sale for your organization, you have a responsibility now to deliver on whatever you sold, that product or service. That's stress on your organization. And as a small business owner that's so ingrained in the business, that's stress on us. And so as sales increase and we concentrate our efforts on that, we make more and more money. We actually feel more and more reticent about the business. We because there's more burden put upon us and we're making no more money, in some cases less. So we actually have a resentment toward our business as we sell more. So that's part of the reason is that we have this compulsion to sell more because we think it's going to it's going to give us more money. But there's a big difference between making money and taking money. The other thing is sales is actually an immediate feedback loop. So if I call a prospect today, I'm going to immediately find out if there's interest or not. And then I can pick up the phone to make the next sale. Or if I get a sale, I can high five myself and continue on. So there's an immediate feedback loop. Profit, the retention of cash, is a slower feedback loop. And humanity is just wired for that quick endorphin release. So sales, there's this immediate endorphin release, right? You get a benefit immediately. You call that prospect and they sign up and it's like, yeah, I feel great. And if they don't, at least you have an immediate feedback. It's not them that's going to buy. So you pick up the phone and call the next prospect. Profit is a lot more of a delayed benefit or delayed reward. And therefore, as human wiring, not to focus on that because it's a delayed benefit. It's like someone's a smoker. Even though everyone knows smoking will kill you, everyone knows that. You don't need to train anyone on that. Some people still smoke because you get the immediate feeling, that sensation of relaxation or endorphin release or whatever. And you're focused on the immediate, gain as opposed to the long-term consequence. The other thing is we are not neurologically wired into our businesses. So a lot of entrepreneurs say, I trust my gut. I use my gut. And I get it. But also our gut is not nearly as effective in our business lives as is in our personal lives. So personally, if I'm walking down a dark alley and I get this tingling sensation of danger, well, that's my eyes and my hearing and all my senses collaborating together and sending a signal through my nerves to trigger fear. And that is a call to action to turn around. Now, we're not neurologically wired into our business. So when things aren't working, our neural network doesn't say, "Oop, it's a profit problem." we just say things aren't working. It must be sales. We revert to our guttural instinct of going to sales. So I think we really need a system to pinpoint where the real challenge is in our business. And I'm kind of setting myself up here for a plug, so please forgive me. But that's my newest book. Like I believe this is such a prevalent problem that I wrote my newest book, which is called Fix This Next. Fix This Next is designed to pinpoint what to work on. Because I believe, and this is the thesis of the book, the biggest challenge entrepreneurs have is knowing what their biggest challenge is.
How do they not know what their biggest challenge is?
Because we don't know the hierarchy of needs our business has. Like, let me rewind to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That's the human hierarchy of needs. And Maslow was studying this and said that basically, at any given time, humanity needs to have base level needs fully satisfied before we can address higher level needs. The base level needs he identified are what's called physiological needs. Breathing in air, we need oxygen, right? Food, water. Above that, he said we have the safety needs, like safety from harm, safety from the inclement weather, safety from financial stress. Then above that, he has belonging, which means to experience love and compassion for others, to belong to a community. Then he has esteem and self-actualization. Self-actualization is living into your life's purpose. And, you and Rocky, right now, you and I can be talking philosophical stuff. For me, this is actually a self-actualization conversation. I so emphatically believe in the eradication of entrepreneurial poverty and that my life's mission is to do that. High-level conversation. If I'm eating a hamburger right now while we're talking, I start choking on a hamburger, all of a sudden my body will neurologically respond by trying to expel that hunk of meat out of my throat. It's a physiological need. So I'll revert right to the base of Maslow's hierarchy. And our conversation is no longer relevant or important. I have to dislodge this. Only once I'm breathing comfortably again can I elevate up. So Maslow said basically, if a base level need is not being satisfied, you must address it. But once it is, then we climb and aspire to other level needs. Well, I translated this into business, and there's a 5-level structure or 5-level hierarchy, I call it the business hierarchy of needs, that businesses have. And the base foundationally is sales. Sales is the creation of cash. And without it, your business can't exist. So you need to have some kind of recurring form of cash. But the next level immediately above it is profit. And profit is the creation of sustainability. Profit allows a business to stay around. Cash allows, sales allow cash to appear, but it's the retention of cash that brings about sustainability. And since we're not neurologically wired into our business, if we are experiencing a threat of cash, we're short on cash, on Maslow's equivalent, this would be someone having a gun to your head, a safety need. We in our business are reverting to a base level need. We're saying, well, I'm not making profit, therefore I need to sell more. That's like saying someone has a gun to my head. I'm going to start breathing deeply to defend myself. I mean, that's crazy. What would happen neurologically is you try to block the gun, away from you, or you would plead for your life. You take actions to not experience harm. Yet, because we're not wired into our business, we take an action like gasping for air when someone has a gun to our head. It will never save us or serve us. So we just need this compass. And that's what the Fix This Next process is a process to identify where your business's current most vital need is so you can address it and continue to climb up the hierarchy.
And that makes a lot of sense. And unfortunately, I think, and this was a major aha for me, because I was doing all this work in the personal finance space. I had gone down and gotten trained by Dave Ramsey's group, and I was dealing with people. And then I got this aha of, and I think it was because someone was in your program, read your book, and said to me, business owners have the same problem. 80% of them don't even look at their numbers and have a clue what's going on. 15% of them have somewhat of an idea, but there's only 5% of them who truly know what's going on and are focused on them. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. How is it that we have business owners who don't even understand the basics of their financials and their business? Because as you said, it is a base need. And if you can't meet your base needs, you're never, ever going to survive as a business.
Never. Yeah. So, and so many of us get caught up in what's called the cash flow game. Remember, sales is the creation of cash. And so what we do is we're not profitable. So we try to sell more thinking that will resolve cash. And it doesn't. But what it does is it can support temporary cash flow. So some more money flows in Well, now you can pay off some of your credit cards temporarily until those expenses occur 60 days later or whatever. And then you got to ramp up the credit cards again. And we get caught in this cash flow game. So we're actually putting more and more burden over time, more and more debt on our business just by trying to sell our way out of it. The other thing I've observed about humanity, and I'm painting myself a picture of myself right here, right now, because this is what I've did forever, is I find that I behave a certain way. And for me to change how I behave is very hard. So what I consider now is, what can I do to intercept and leverage an existing behavior? Here's an example. It's important, I believe, for me to exercise with regularity. Well, I do, but it doesn't mean I necessarily like to exercise. So when I wake up in the morning, it's not like, okay, can't wait to work out. It's a necessity. But how do I make myself do it? Because there's a million reasons just to hit the buzzer or hit the alarm and sleep in a little bit more. What I do is I put my sneakers in the bathroom, but particularly on the toilet seat. Because when I wake up, I go in the bathroom, I use the toilet, and now I can't use the toilet without having to grab my sneakers. But once my sneakers are in my hand, it's like, sneakers are in hand. I made the first small step. Now let me put my sneakers on, and that's the next step. And then I'm out the door going for a run or going to the weight room or whatever. Well, for profit, this is what I've devised for businesses through Profit First, is I realized the majority of business owners, particularly small business owners, don't do the accounting, to your point, Rocky. We don't go to our QuickBooks or whatever the system is and tie in the income statement to the balance sheet and cash flow and really analyze it. What most of us do, and what I have done and continue to do, is I log into my bank account and I follow a real simple system. I call it bank balance accounting. If I have money, I'll spend it. And if I don't, panic ensues trying to figure out how to get money in. Well, since I realized that I'm running or looking at my bank accounts to determine how much money is available to make purchases, I need a system that sits there and controls that flow of money. So Profit First is a system that resides within your bank accounts, because that's where we naturally go, pre-allocates money to its intended use before we spend it. So now we have some control over how we utilize our money. And now we manage our money much more positively. We allocate money to our profit. So we start achieving profit without the necessity to change our habits and behaviors, which is super hard to do.
And it works. I do a lot of entertaining, and I have learned that if you want your food to last, use smaller plates. So if I give my guests smaller plates, they take smaller portions and the food makes it. And then if they're still hungry, they go back and they get more. It's not a problem. If you give a large plate, they fill up the large plate and half of it ends up in the garbage because it's just wasted. They took it because they felt excited in the moment. And so it is very much of a psychological human kind of need. And it's the reason I've built wealth. Literally from the day I got my first paycheck, I essentially set up all of these automated savings accounts, just using a variety of different ways. And so before I even started seeing money in the beginning of my career, all my money was immediately being shuffled off. And over time, it compounds. And so that has allowed me to have financial success. So the principles work, and they're not just specific to your business. They work in every part of life because it's a true natural law, so to speak.
Exactly. Yeah. I even use this in my personal finance. My family, we went to Disney. My wife and daughter have a particular penchant for Disney, and I'll go along for the ride. I think it's a pretty fascinating place, and it's a great business study. Next time you go to a Disney, just go down one of their lines at one of their cafeterias or place to eat. Look at the size of the serving trays. The trays that you put your plates on when you self-serve, they are bigger than normal trays. They're bigger than the ones you'd see at a traditional cafeteria. Fits more space in. They sequence the way things are presented. The dessert will present first because they know if you're in a hunger state, your willpower is at a weakened state, you're more likely to take up a dessert. So dessert will always be presented before the meal. The last thing they'll serve typically is the liquid, water, soda, whatever it is, because we will almost always get a liquid with our meal. So that's the give me sale. So put that at the end as the tack on and get the dessert on the plate first. Make the tray as big as possible. So when you put the dessert down, it's like, I didn't take that much. I have enough room for what I want to eat, and I'm happy I'm eating a small dessert. So there's a lot of behavioral mechanisms at play. And I'm not just picking on Disney. This is true with all businesses. And they can be leveraged against us, but we ourselves can use it to kind of win the war and drive the goals we have, in this case, profit.
And that's very true. I'm a big fan of Disney. I'm a big stockholder, so that's why I'm a fan, because they make lots of money. And
they make a lot of money.
I do well with that stock, but they are a well-run company. I mean, they think of everything down to a science. They take feedback from their employees, and they actually elicit it. I've been through some of the Disney leadership things, and they said,
"Oh, cool.
We've got a problem," right? They said, people come into our park in the morning, they're here all day, and then they forget where they park. How do we, they've got, 50,000 cars in their parking lot. How do we find these people's cars? So they went back to their employees and they said, this is our problem. The employees said, okay, we're going to put the cars in certain places at certain times, and we're going to write it down so that when somebody says, I came in this morning, I can't find my car, you'll just ask them, well, what time did you get here? We got here about 10:15. 10:15, this is where we were parking cars. Let's go there.
So smart. I didn't know that. I love it.
But so they go down to such a level of detail, as you talk about, even waiting in line in a ride. I mean, they have long lines. Yeah. They make that experience such that you are not anxious, that you are having fun, and that you are okay waiting in that line, because there are things along the way that they do to such great detail to entertain you and to make sure that you have an amazing experience. And for what they charge, they should.
They should. Oh, you can tell me about it. I did the Haunted Mansion with my kids, I think 20 times the same day. And it was entertaining, waiting to go in every single time. So yeah, there's a lot to be learned there. I think one great takeaway that you shared, and I studied this and wrote about it in Clockwork, is that ultimately when a business faces a problem, the people in the best position to present resolutions are the people that are facing the problem or serving the problem, the front line. So, traditional management theory, and this is not my theory. I like to learn from others and then compile it in a very digestible format. But this is kind of leans against lean principles, something that was brought about in the 50s. And the idea was that when a problem occurs, the person that's closest to it will be the most into that problem and best to solve it. Toyota, the manufacturer in Japan of automobiles, used this guy. His last name was Deming. He's the father of lean. And as opposed to American car manufacturers at the time, when there was a problem on the line, a worker would stop the line, the management would run over, and the management would start talking about what we need to fix and how we address this as the whole line would wait. In Japan, if there was a problem, the worker would stop the line, the management would run over, but they'd run to the worker and say, what do we need to do for you? The worker would be empowered and directed to solve the problem. And the management's job was to be of service to the employee to satisfy whatever they directed. So the director of the resolution becomes the employee in the lean process. And in the old process that was still being used in the US, the management team that was not intimate with the problem was the one trying to generate the solution, therefore generating inadequate solutions. So there's definitely something we as small businesses need to employ there, is even if you have a business of one virtual assistant, you're that small that you have just one part-time assistant. Well, that part-time assistant should be consulted with whenever the problems that arise are the problems that she or he are working on. They potentially know the most answers and resolutions.
It's fun. I spent most of my life in corporate America, and without exception, it was the exact opposite. And they have all the answers. Shut up and do what you're told. And it just creates a horrible situation. And that's why I think a lot of people don't enjoy work, is because they don't have they sit there and they go, I can fix all these problems if you'll just get out of the way or provide me these 3 resources. But instead we get stuck in this type of a situation. And I think that comes back, and we've spent time talking on the podcast about creating the right culture. Creating a culture where your people are empowered to do the job, and they're in charge, and they have the freedom to make those kinds of choices.
Yes. We just returned from a annual or maybe semi-annual retreat, and it was our planning for the 2020. So we met, I think it was the 2nd of January. went into the Poconos. We're based out of New Jersey, so went to Pennsylvania just to get out of sight, out of mind of work, but to concentrate on work. And the president of our company, her name is Kelsey. This is the Mike. So I have multiple businesses. So I know you're very familiar with Profit First Professionals. We also have the Mike Michalowicz brand. That's my books and speaking stuff. And small business, there's 6 of us, but Kelsey's our leader. And Kelsey led us through this exercise. And she goes, she wanted to get real clear on what we all individually aspire to experience in our lives in the near future, the next year, but also in the next 5 and 10 years. And she said her job as leader of her company is to align the corporate goals, which are really the goals of the shareholder, which is me. I own the business, with achieving all the goals of the individual people. You know, if I come out beating drums saying we're going to do $10 million of revenue this year, I'm the guy who gets a new car, but everyone else like, big deal. I had a goal. But if Amy, one of our employees, has extreme flexibility in her work, she likes to be home. Her husband travels a lot. So home when he's home, she's at extreme flexibility. Her vision, her goal is coming true. Jenna and her husband want to buy a new house. If they're working toward that, her dream's coming true. So Kelsey aligned everyone's vision collectively. And now the team is so empowered because we see all the big picture. This isn't about one vision, one person. This is about our collective goals.
And you actually know who's working for you and their people, and you know their goals, dreams, and desires. And when you help people to achieve those, they help you to achieve yours. I mean, it's a simple standard principle, and yet business struggles with it, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's true.
Today's episode of Richer Soul is brought to you by Profit Comes First. Most business owners focus on top-line revenue, and while that's important, the bottom line, what you take home and what's available to reinvest in the business, is what drives continued long-term success. Hundreds of thousands of companies are using Profit First in their business. You don't have to learn fancy accounting systems or how to read complicated financial statements. You just implement the system and behave much like you currently do. However, you pay yourself first. As a certified Profit First professional, I help entrepreneurs and small business owners to grow their business profitably. Through my coaching and consulting, we ensure your business is on track, and I'm making sure that you keep spending in line, increasing your profitability. Learn more at profitcomesfirst.com or click on the scheduling link in the show notes to book a no-obligation call to see how Profit First can help put more money in your pocket. So just out of curiosity, you've probably heard a ton of Profit First success stories. What's probably the biggest or most inspiring one that you've heard?
I hear them probably, this is going to sound crazy, but probably at least 1 or 2 an hour now. So I get emails around Profit First, and we averaged out every 15 minutes on average. An email comes in from someone that's discovered Profit First or is committed to it. And the reason so many come in is, I think I'm blessed that the popularity of the book, I know I'm blessed with that, but also I encourage readers to reach out to me. I ask them to, because I want to see what's going on. And of those, every day, there's a story or two about these magnificent successes. And the one that stands out, but I got to start sharing other ones because this is becoming my go-to one, but it was just so remarkable, was the baseball team. They sent me a physical printed letter. This is about 4 years ago. The business owner, the baseball team owner, and said they implemented Profit First. Now, of course, this was not a major league team. It was an all-star minors team.
Savannah Bananas, right?
Yeah,
he's in my mastermind.
Oh, Jesse is?
Yeah.
Oh, he's awesome.
He is.
They are the most profitable baseball team in all the minor leagues and all-star leagues. And on a percentage basis, they beat the major leagues. Some of the major leagues, they're more profitable percentage-wise. Of course, they don't do the same revenue. And Jesse said he discovered Profit First. And Jesse is an extremely, extremely innovative, high energy, charismatic entrepreneur. I think Profit First simply served as a guideline of how he could channel that energy and how he couldn't. And by taking the Profit First, they have not compromised one thing about the Savannah Bananas experience. In fact, by taking the Profit First, they've enhanced the baseball experience. Instead of spending money on entertainers, they realize they have to build the entertainment from within. So their own baseball players don't just throw baseballs around. They're line dancers. They have the Savannah Banana Grandmas, right? The dance team is a choreographed, you have to be 80 or older or something to get on the dance team, but they're volunteers. And now this is a dream for these people to get in front of this fan base that goes, and there's like, I've been to now multiple games, almost 5,000 people in these stands. Their competitors attract maybe 300 if they're lucky. 5,000 people going screaming mad over the Savannah Banana Grandma dance team. So Jesse and the Savannah Bananas have been able to leverage Profit First in such a fascinating way to really foster even more innovation. It's probably one of my favorite stories of all time.
And I've heard that one, and that is an awesome. And he is a charismatic guy. I mean, he dresses in all yellow. He's a little crazy.
yeah, he's crazy. And yeah. And actually, I'm studying this concept of the crazy ones. And crazy is a powerful force because you get noticed. And that's not all of it, but that's a big part of the battle is, do people even take the time to notice you? And the only way you're ever going to get noticed is not by being different than the competition. It's by being better.
And so I'm reading Russell Brunson's Expert Secrets, and he talks about that. He says you have to be a little bit crazy, a little bit out of the mainstream, but not too far. You can't go so far that they don't follow you. You need to be just enough different and just enough of something new that will attract that kind of a crowd. And you create your own market then, right? Because he's not selling minor league baseball. He's selling an experience.
Yep. The question is, does it reel them in or does it repulse them out? And as I'm researching this and I'm compiling it for a book I'll write probably in 2021, 2022, what I'm realizing is different gets noticed, but you can be different in a repulsive way. And I'm not saying necessarily repulsive equals grotesque, but in a way that repels people. And so, I could be a really unique and different attorney who, dresses in a bozo costume when I come into court. Every juror is going to notice that. But what I'm saying, this guy's innocent, waka waka, the jury's going to be like, this guy's crazy, the clown. They're not going to put value in me. They're going to be repulsed by me. So I have a responsibility to be different in a way that attracts and compels my prospects, my clients, the people I want to attract to want to be with me and do business with.
So I'll give you two people to research, Howard Stern and Rush Limbaugh, because they walk both sides of that line. As much as people hate them, they come back to just see what they're going to do next.
Yeah.
And so they've got their lovers and their haters, but yet their haters come along.
Yeah, well, that's the funny thing. So I know Howard Stern, not because I love his stuff. Actually, I don't listen to it. It just doesn't resonate with me. I don't have anything for him. I don't have anything against him. But I'm very well aware of him. And the reason is because he's built that exact audience where there are the lovers and the haters. When you can polarize an audience, both sides win. The people that love you now have to defend you. So they have a call to action, a purpose. So the people are like, Howard Stern is a shock jock and he's grotesque and so forth. The people that love him are like, he speaks to me, you don't get it. And it empowers them. They have something to defend. So that's a very empowering thing. Conversely, the side that's on the attack saying how horrible Howard Stern is also benefiting because they have to prove they're right. They don't just say, Howard Stern's horrible and then they're done. The other side says, no, you don't get it. And they're like, what? We totally get it. You're the ones who are blind to it. So now you have both sides engaged. So it's important for a successful brand to polarize a community. Not intentionally. You don't want to intentionally upset and hurt people, But what you want to do is intentionally empower a specific community, which will, as a side effect, will repulse others. And then once you have that happening, now you have an empowered community on both sides, and your brand's going to grow.
And that it is. It reminds me of a story of kind of, it's a historical business story back in the days when we had neighborhood hardware stores. And there were these two hardware stores next door to each other. And they would literally fight against each other. The two hardware stores would constantly be at odds against each other. And within the town, everyone went to one or they went to the other. And you were known by which hardware store you went to. And this went on for decades. And eventually, Home Depot or whatever came in and the guys got old and they retired. And after they died, because they used to live in the back of the hardware store, we used to live in our businesses. After they died and the buildings went up for sale, they discovered a secret. The two apartments behind the hardware store were connected. They were brothers.
Oh, my God.
And so they literally played the entire community for decades. They created that tension to cause the fighting, to get both of them to get more business.
I heard a parallel story. It may be mythology, but supposedly there was a bridal shop that had three other competitors all on this street corner. So each corner of the four corners had its own bridal shop, and customers and they all had a reputation for something else. One had excellent service, one had the best quality items, one was the cheapo kind of warehouse type place. And people would go in, and if they ever got frustrated, those customers would storm out and say, I'm going to get a better deal at, and they'd point across the street to one of the other three. And the store manager would say, oh, I'm sorry we lost your business. Well, they owned, as you can already tell, they owned all four of the locations. And that is actually a growth strategy, is all customers don't buy from a singular source. Everyone knows Walmart, but does everyone shop at Walmart? Probably not. There's probably some people say, I'm going to be a Walmart shopper. I'm going to go somewhere else. There's different types of consumer bases. So one consideration, but I would not suggest this as an early stage business, only as we grow and become more sophisticated, is to start offering competitive, basically product lines. But do this by starting your own next new business to compete with your first business.
That's essentially the story of Netflix, right? In a sense, they kind of reinvented themselves over and over.
Yeah. I mean, I would argue that Blockbuster at one point was a big facilitator of that. I would argue that Redbox became a facilitator of that. Now I believe the online channels like Prime is the next major facilitator. What I'm so impressed by Netflix is they've iterated so quickly in probably one of the most fast advancing technologies in the consumables space, which is video content. And if you rewind merely 30 years ago, it was Main Street video stores, like the VHS tapes or Beta, whatever was popular then. The stores were renting them out, and then along comes Blockbuster that changed the game to be this kind of singular entity that can offer all the movies, and you don't have to ping pong around different little movie shops trying to find the movie you want. That was the impetus for Netflix, and then they did their mailing deliverables, and then that moved and shifted to on demand, which now has shifted to their own content generation. What impressed me so much about Netflix is every time a competitor has raised its hand with the next new offering, Netflix has responded by, to your point, Rocky, by eradicating what they've done prior and inventing something new. They keep on iterating through new invention.
And Blockbuster was offered the opportunity to buy Netflix. And Blockbuster said, no, we make too much money in late fees
we want to get
involved in that.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah, that's funny.
You have to constantly iterate, and you can't rely on the past. You always have to take that next step forward, because the world is changing faster and faster.
That's right.
So as awesome as Profit First is, I'm sure that there are struggles. Where do you see most business owners struggle with Profit First?
Yeah. So the first thing is the philosophy. People see Profit First and they think it's too simple to be true. Like, how could something so easy by just carving up money at a bank account and moving to different accounts? It sounds like a shell game. How could it actually be of service to me? I think it's human nature to throw complexity at our struggles. when actually simplicity is the solution, but we overlook simplicity. So that's one common problem. Another challenge I see regularly, we have over 300,000 companies now successfully implement Profit First. So it's established. And so we've seen so many different flavors of success, but so many different flavors of failure with the system. The second most common thing I see is kind of the all-in approach. People decide to implement Profit First, and they say, you know what, we've never been profitable before, but now using the system, we want to have a 20% profit. We're going to make sure that all the owners are paid these really good salaries. And the business goes from a struggling business, and overnight they try to convert it to this extremely, cash fluid business. And the business needs time to adjust. So that abrupt change can harm a business. And then they say, well, Profit First doesn't work, and they abandon the system. And then probably so I'll give you the top three resistant points. Top three are the experts, the accountants or the bookkeepers say, you can't do Profit First. That makes no sense. I've never done that. Just do the accounting. And what's happening there is, in many cases, these accountants, bookkeepers, and even coaches aren't familiar with the system. They've been steeped and trained in the traditional way of doing accounting. They don't realize Profit First isn't an accounting system; it's a cash management system, and are not willing to experiment or understand how the system works. The funny thing is, to our earlier discussion, the Profit First concept based upon the envelope system has existed longer than modern accounting, which has only been around for 300 years. So this is a more established system, but it gets rejected because the expert you rely on, the professional, doesn't have any experience there. And the word of caution is, just because they don't have experience with it doesn't mean it doesn't work. One thing, when acid test, simply ask that accountant of yours saying, well, if I'm not going to do Profit First to drive profit, tell me of your existing clients, what percentage of your clients are posting a quarterly profit distribution? Part of Profit First ensures that happens. I strongly suspect the accountant will say, well, none. I bet you almost none of their clients, less than 1%, are achieving that. And then the argument is, well, why do I have to do a system that doesn't yield profit? Why can't I try something new? So you can give a little pushback. They're there to serve you. Those accountants, bookkeepers, and coaches are there to serve you. And part of that serving is to learn and develop and support new systems that support you, the client.
It's funny. I talk to bankers a lot about it. And their comment to me is, oh, you make people bankable, meaning that, they've got cash flow and they're actually making money and you can see the money being made. And I'm like, yeah, I make them bankable. But then I take them to the next point where they don't even need to be bankable because they're so profitable. They don't need you anymore. That doesn't go over so well. So I have to learn to fix that messaging. But yeah, there are so many so-called experts, and they're experts for a reason because they want you to feel like you're not an expert, that they know it all. And you just have to be careful because that's just human nature. They spent their whole life becoming an expert, getting degrees. They're going to put up that wall and say, you have to listen to us because we're the expert. And sometimes you just have to stand up and go, no, I'm going a different way.
Yeah, no, I agree. Even though I do so much writing and so forth, I don't like to be called an expert. I hate the word guru. I simply have a perspective that other people don't have. But at the same time, they have a perspective that I don't have. I found out that, the human journey, we're all on a big journey here, and we all have perspectives. The goal is for a collaborative here. We all should be compelled to share. We all should learn. And then the learning comes out of what I call common threads. When I see something that resonates with me in one place, I will seek it out again elsewhere. And then once I hear that message 3 or 4 times and it lands with me every time, and it makes sense to me every time, then I know this is something I need to pursue and do. It's not just trusting the words of one single person alone.
Well, just look at what's successful. If you see success, follow success, right? Hey, all these people implemented Profit First and they're profitable. All these people are with my accountant and they never take a profit distribution. Wonder which way I want to go.
Exactly.
So I have a question because I'm not sure of this. For the business owners who just buy the book, read the book, and implement, do you find that they get lazy in the sense that even though they pull their profit out and they make sure that they're getting paid, when they look at their bank account like they normally do, they're still not looking at their financial reports. They're just looking at their bank account. And the system helps them because it gives them a smaller plate. But are they still sloppy with that smaller plate when they don't have help that says, hey, that plate's sloppy. Did you know you did this, this, and this?
Yes and no. I equate it to gym membership. There are a faction of people that join a gym and they go and they research the exercises and they do it properly and they stick with it and they don't need any outside help. That is actually the minority of people, right? So the majority of people sign for the gym and then, right in the new year, and then they go once, they injure themselves or they get sore and they say, I'm never going again until next year when they're frustrated again. Others will work in a collaborative with, I'll train with someone else. I'll go to the gym and say, hey, I want to stay on track here. My buddy, why don't you also go to the gym? Let's go together and we'll support each other. And that can be effective until it becomes a collusion. Like, one day it's raining out. I'm like, I don't want to go to the gym. And I call my friend. He's like, I don't want to go either. He's like, why don't we go get some donuts at Dunkin' Donuts? I'm like, yeah, let's get some donuts. And now we're colluding on a really negative outcome, right? The ultimate for gyms, and I found this to be for profit first too, is the trainer. There's some people that sign for a gym and say, I want to make sure I'm doing this right. I want to make sure I'm not injuring myself, but I'm growing the muscle or tone or whatever I want to achieve, losing weight. And I have a professional that's done this for hundreds, if not thousands of other people guiding me. Oh, and they're the ultimate accountability partner because I'm paying them for their service. They're not going to miss a single thing, snowing or not. And when I call them up and say, let's grab a donut, they're going to swat it out of my hand and say, back to the gym. That's what I want. Well, when it's profit first is the same three ways it's being executed. Some people try to execute on their own. The vast minority do it effectively because they have the discipline, but the majority start and they stop because it was too hard. The business got sore, if you will, and they give up on it. That's a real shame. Another portion will try to work with other entrepreneurs. It's definitely an elevated way of doing it because now there's some cross accountability. The likelihood of success when doing it with another entrepreneur is greater. But the most successful outcomes we see consistently are the entrepreneurs that are hiring a profit first professional, a trainer. Because the profit first professional, like the trainer, has done this for dozens, hundreds, maybe even 1,000 other through our community. It's been hundreds of thousands through the profit first community of clients. So we know what works and what doesn't work. And so these entrepreneurs are hiring profit first professionals for that discipline of doing the right things the right way with profit first and being held accountable. And so those stories consistently are our best success stories.
And I went through a weight loss journey where I lost a bunch of weight probably 7-8 years ago, and I've kept it off. And throughout that process, I had accountability partners. I had trainers. I had people who designed my system for the trainers to implement because they wanted to make sure they were doing the right things. I had a dietitian. I had an entire team around me to ensure my success. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the reasons, because they would take me when I struggled and I had friction. They would be like, okay, just make this change. I wouldn't have to think about it. I didn't have to think about what exercises I had to do. I didn't have to think of, I showed up. They told me what to do. I followed the systems. When things didn't work, it wasn't my problem. It was their problem. You fix it. You're there. And I'm 54 years old. I'm in the best shape of my life. It's phenomenal. And I couldn't do that without help. And I do that in other parts of my life too. I get help to help me become better.
That's awesome.
So it's really, really cool. It's time to learn the secrets of life. What's your secret to living an abundant life?
I think it's appreciating the small moments. I went for a bike ride. We have family in Hawaii. It was the greatest place to have family. I went for a bike ride and just down this lonely road with no one there and just looking at the grass and how it sways, seeing the mice run in and out. It was just really a powerful moment. And to me, that brought about abundance. There's so much going on around us all times if we just look.
Every morning I try to look at the sunrise because it's beautiful.
Oh, it's awesome.
What did you learn later in life that you wish you would have learned sooner?
Take my profit first. Oh, my gosh. I mean, I know we've been talking about it, but I tell you, I didn't write the book first and foremost to be of service to people. I am honored and flattered that it's working out that way. I wrote it because I desperately needed that system for me. And it's saved my financial life, maybe even saved my life, period. It's been such a game changer for me.
And I can tell you, I've been using these principles since my first paycheck, and it works, whether you're a business owner or not. When you pay yourself first and you put your profit aside, it's a proven principle.
Yeah.
If you were to give an 18-year-old one specific piece of wisdom, what would it be?
That action trumps knowledge. And in life, a lot of times I wanted to wait till I knew more, had more confidence, had more experience. Even asking my wife, I was terrified to do it. Thank God I took action. With my business, when I leapt into it, it only started becoming successful when I leapt into it. But I was stymied in the beginning of pondering and considering. So default toward action over knowledge and experience.
It's a lot easier to learn when you're doing.
It really is.
If people would like to find you, connect, learn more about your books, what is the best way for them to do that?
The best place, Rocky, is my website, and there's a shortcut to get there. It's MikeMotorbike.com. That was my nickname in high school. And you can go to MikeMotorbike.com. It'll forward to my official site, which is MikeMichalowicz.com. At MikeMotorbike.com, you'll get all my chapter downloads from all my books for free. I'm a podcaster. It's called Entrepreneurship Elevated, and a blogger. And all that content you get in one shot. Just go to MikeMotorbike.com, click on Get the Tools, and all the stuff will be in your inbox in one single email. Links to everything.
Thank you so much for sharing that, and I will make sure it's in the show notes.
Rocky, thank you.
I really enjoyed having Mike on the show to share the Profit First system with you. Regardless of if you run a business or have a job, paying yourself first and putting the money aside is how you build wealth. You can't out-earn your way to wealth if you don't keep your spending in line. You've all heard about lifestyle creep, and business spending creep is no different. We forget those bills like taxes that come due once a year. Once we have our finances under control, you have the time and freedom to build the life of your dreams. The space to think about the bigger picture and the ability to get help to ensure your success in life. This week's action step is to set up an automated saving system for your business or for your personal savings. Start small, just 1%, and over time, keep increasing it. If you're already doing it, then go ahead and adjust it up by 1%. It's guaranteed to work. To learn more about Mike and get access to a treasure trove of entrepreneurial tips, visit MikeMichalowicz.com. There's a link in the show notes if you don't know how to spell his name. If you're ready to implement Profit First in your business, schedule a no-obligation 15-minute call to learn more. There's a scheduling link in the show notes. Hey, if you're still listening, you must have liked the episode, so please share it with a few friends. It can start a great conversation, and I would appreciate it. You can also connect with me on Facebook. There's both a Facebook page and group for Richer Soul. What's preventing you from moving forward, and who are you putting on your team to help build the life you deserve? Taking no action creates a far worse outcome in life than trying something and failing. Can I help you achieve your goals through coaching and accountability? Just email me. We can start with a short chat to see if we're a good fit. For many people, one session allows them to take a giant leap forward towards their dreams. You can always get me at rocky@richersoul.com. I'd love to hear how you're doing and how the information we've shared has helped you. Thanks for listening. Have an abundant week.